name is Edie Weinstein, and I'm a journalist, a therapist, a speaker, a coach, a Renaissance woman, like the lovely woman sitting here next to me, Dr. Yvonne Kaye, who I've known for something like 30 years. And she came into my life at a time when things were a little bit topsy-turvy, and she set things to right. What I call her is a kick-ass therapist and coach. She, as I said, a Renaissance woman. And I think about the time that we had together, and the Grateful Dead song, Truckin' comes to mind. What a long, strange trip it's been. How many octogenarians do you know that sport tattoos? You want to show them your art, and you can explain a little bit what that's about, who love David Bowie, and Freddie Mercury, and there was another, Bob Marley, of course, Bob Marley, right?
Yes.
So Yvonne has some amazing stories to tell, which is one of the reasons why we're doing this series. So I will let you share a bit about how do you want the world to see you?
Well, the Renaissance woman, I like that, because for me that word means always renewing, always continuing. In my work, I like to be seen as someone who doesn't want her kindness mistaken for weakness, and I might look like and sound like the Queen, but it ends there. From my background, it couldn't be more different. But I want to be, in some way, a beacon of hope, which is, when I work with women in recovery, I like to be very open about my journey, because how can I possibly expect them to achieve what I know they can achieve unless they see someone who's done it? A lot of times there's critics about that. You know, they want to go by the book, and I don't even have a book, as you know. So my passion, as you know, is bereavement work. I'm working with the parents of children who have died, parents of murdered children in particular, because of the things that they feel that that's what they feel, but they're inappropriate in another way, in terms of having guilt and shame. You know, like we separate groups. For example, at Aldi in Doylestown, and my co-leader, Jody, she and I have this particular group only for people who've lost children to death through overdose, because that's different. They can go to the Compassionate Friends, and it's a wonderful thing, but this is specific because of they're so involved with the woulda, coulda, shoulda, and if onlys and whatevers and those kind of things. Then they've been robbed of their future. Many of them have been robbed of having grandchildren and any future at all. So my heart is there. As an addictionist, I've done that for such a long time, and I always find that actually I'm a bit like you, because I like things that are challenging. Also as a writer, you know how we are with words. There are words I don't like strong.
Can you share a little bit about that? Because you told me back when my husband died in 1998 that don't call myself strong, because when you're strong it means you don't need anybody.
That's absolutely
you have
right.
Strengths. Where did that come from for you?
That came from me being strong.
Okay.
And then being there for everybody. It's like that whole phrase, oh, Yvonne won't mind. I grew up with Yvonne won't mind, and Yvonne does mind. And so that aspect of strong was that I was looking at all these people, and I'm not talking professionally, personally, that will come to me, and then I would say to myself, where's my shoulder to cry on? And I realized that my aura, my energy was putting out strong. And that was back in the 50s, the 60s, late 60s, when I first came to this country. And that was something that was a real spiritual awakening. I don't like to be cliche here, but it was sudden recognition that I had strengths, lots of them. And that's what I asked the women with whom I work at Liberté, for example. The other day I said to them, so what are your character assets? And they said, compassion, strengths, listening. And then I said, and here comes the big question. Do you do that for yourself? And they couldn't answer me. You know that. They just couldn't answer me. So my work is to have them learn about that they can't give what they don't have. Otherwise we're looking at codependency, That's a whole nother addiction.
Right. And I want to thank you, because I like to say that you kicked my butt into recovery from codependence.
Yes.
Back in, what was the year? 1993. You made sure, and this is something I've shared with the world anyway, so it's no big deal. You made sure that I got into a treatment program because if you have the word codependence in the dictionary, my picture would have been right next to it.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know, codependence is about caregiving, what I call savior behavior, not knowing where you start and someone else stops, not having blurred boundaries or no boundaries. And that was me back then.
Okay.
And you made sure that I got into this 5.5-day program. It's no longer there. It's Livingren, which is another place where you work.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, Liberté, Livingren, and Aldi are centers in the Philadelphia area that work with folks with addictions. And Yvonne has worked in all of those and continues to work in all of those. So just some reference. And then Compassionate Friends, for those that don't know what that is, can you explain?
The Compassionate Friends is another miracle. Like AA, for example, that started with 2 men and a 3rd drunk. And now it's in every country of the world. So years ago, there was a chaplain in a hospital in England, and he was dealing with 3 women who had stillborn babies, and there was nothing. So around that kitchen table, all those years ago, was born the Compassionate Friends. It's an organization that is for parents, friends, families where a child has died, gone well before its time, in any way. Could be an accident, could be overdose, could be murder, whatever, cancer, any of those things. And it's a support group, so there are people who take care of things like a chair and they change it, but there's no leader, no boss. And people can go there and just be themselves. And one of the things that doesn't matter what support meeting I go to, whenever I walk in the door before the meeting, everybody's laughing. Because it's a huge part of recovery. And the reason they're laughing is because they're safe. No one's going to say, is there time you got over that? Or to a young woman, well, you can get pregnant again. What's the big deal? They're not going to hear anything like that. A young woman that I just am working with, I took her to a meeting and she had really the most horrible, horrible stillborn birth I'd ever heard of in my life. Just before Mother's Day. And she sat in that meeting, Northeast Philadelphia, marvelous group, and she was crying and she said, it's Mother's Day. Am I a mother? One voice. All 40 people, one voice. Of course you're a mother. You'll always be a mother. And that's what people need to hear. They really need to hear and be listened to. That's the number one thing in bereavement work, to listen. I always tell people when I see them, there's 2 things I can't do. I can't bring your child back. I won't even try to take away your pain because that would be disrespectful. But anything else, sometimes they end up on my lap, whatever. Because as you know, you're a bereavement specialist too, that we are different. And I always say to people, if you want to go to therapy, make sure you ask, are you a bereavement specialist? And the other thing, which is a standing joke in the Compassionate Friends, when people say, well, how do I know it's a good therapist? And I said, if they're sitting behind a desk, get out. I don't think that's hilarious. I'm not kidding. I don't want anything between me and whoever I'm working with. That energy is so important.
And I think some of it is about being, as you mentioned, a listening presence, because so many people have no clue how to be there for someone who's lost a loved one, whether it's a child, a friend, a spouse, a partner, parent, because we're not taught, we're not given that education that helps us to understand that sometimes if you don't know what to say, you tell the person, I don't know what to say.
That's right.
I just want to sit with you. Tell me what you need, and I'll do that.
Sure.
A lot of people in over the years that I've talked to who've been in that situation have said, my friends have abandoned me. My family doesn't know what to say. And as you mentioned, aren't you over it now?
Oh, yes.
There is no statute of limitations on grief, is what I tell my clients.
It's true.
That everybody grieves in their own way. My only concern is their safety. If their grief is getting in the way of
course.
taking care of themselves or functioning, then I say, okay, let's find ways that in the midst of the grief, you can keep on keeping on. And I'm here to help you learn
Sure.
how to do that. So have you found that that's the case too, that if people don't know what to say, you tell them, don't say anything. Just
I
be there.
do. And because you see, I was going to say this nation, but actually this world is a world of fixers. You cannot fix grief, especially of a child. It's the wrong order of nature. You're not supposed to bury your child. And so what I found in also grief, it brings up other injuries, other things that have gone on before that need attention. You're absolutely right. But the main thing I find is that people don't want to bother anybody. You know, there's a whole list of phone numbers in the Compassionate Friends that people can call. And I asked them this when I was there Monday night, do you pick up the phone? Well, and so someone else who's on that list said, I've been here for 30 years and no one has ever called me. And that's such a shame. Because, you know, I created this scream list years ago. And I say to people, you need 3 people that you can just call and vent and whatever. 3, because if you have 1, you're going to wear them out. So you need 3, and you need to know what time you can call. And you don't need people who are going to say to you, oh, I didn't know you knew those words. But just people who can just listen. That's all they want to listen. The things they most miss is someone to listen and touch. Those are the things, are the big, big things.
Well, I'm honored to be on your scream list, and you are certainly
Yes,
on mine.
you
We've
are.
called each other,
Yes.
and you know that I'm accessible to you 24/7.
Yes, same
So
here.
yeah,
Same
so
here.
it does help to have that. And I sometimes use words that are not in my spiritual vocabulary either.
Well, I have a friend, she's a Brit, and she's a bereaved mother. And she